Very good. Okay. So, okay. So I really hope that this for us is a relaxed, kind of informal evening. It isn't really intended to be a lecture, so bear with my slides, because the slides are really just there for me to kind of keep me from deviating too much, because this topic is huge and I could talk for the rest of the night, and I'm sure you don't want that. So the slides are actually more for me than they are for you, in terms of keeping me in some kind of time frame. So tonight is about reflecting on the impact that attachment experiences can have on adults, and a little bit of a question of why it can bring them to therapy, and furthermore from that, the hope and the growth and repair that attachment can offer through therapy. So it's a space for us to explore what attachment has to do with us as adults. Specifically tonight, I'm bringing to you some of my experience as a therapist. I'm going to share some examples of some of the people who have sought counselling and how attachment has featured in the work that I do with them and that we do together. We as Scottish Attachment Act are inviting you to reflect on your own relationships throughout your life as you're listening, just gently reflecting. We're not talking anything heavy, just have a think about what comes up for you, who comes up for you, what are the things that go on for you as you're listening to this. Be gentle with yourself as it does, and just go with the flow. Of course, I kind of just want to say at the outset, anything that I say about clients has either I have permission to speak about, and any names that are used are false names. Things might have been changed slightly. So I'm Catherine Cook. I'm a psychotherapist, counsellor, and supervise other counsellors too. And I've been in private practice for goodness knows how long now, 13 years, I think. I've been a therapist for 17 years. And I trained in the person-centred approach, which very basically means that I'm a very relational and humanistic counsellor. For me, the way that I work, particularly now in my latter years, is much with attachment thread throughout everything that I do. But what's really interesting about that is my training, given that it was a relational and humanistic training, didn't really offer much in terms of attachment theory or understanding. And yeah, it wasn't really explicitly spoken about. And so a lot of my learning about attachment has been through direct experience with clients, making sense of that, reading a bit more about it, and also through the work that I've done with Scottish Attachment Action. The other way in which that I've explored attachment is through my own history of attachment. So looking at my own journey and thread of attachment from early years into my adult life. I'm a trustee with Scottish Attachment Action. I'm very proud to be one, because the way in which I work resonates so deeply with the values and the applications of Scottish Attachment Action. And because I'm passionate about bringing attachment to be recognised specifically with adults and through the lifespan, not just for babies and young people, but that adults are really important to focus on when we talk about attachment. So if you just think about attachment, what does it mean to you? A lot of people talk about this word and I actually don't know what it means, or where it comes from, or whether it has anything to do with them. So it's just a little bit of an invitation for you to reflect on, what does it mean for you? What do you think of when you think of attachment? And tonight we're purposely not going to be too theory heavy, much more about just kind of thinking and as I said, some examples. So when you go to the Scottish Attachment Action website, what you'll find is these are the main words that we use to describe, sorry, I'm dropping things, that we use to describe attachment, what it is. It's about relationships, it's about safety, understanding, about trust, it's about everyone, and it's about connections. Scottish Attachment Action talk about attachment as being all means all. We're literally talking from cradle to grave and even beyond. So tonight we're flying the flags for adults. And my hope is that what we're talking about will link past, your history, present, what's happening now in adulthood, and future, how things can change. All of these components, all of these things that you see on your screen just now are components within therapy. And they're things that I work with and I hope my clients experience in each and every session that I have with them. They are all essential for adults to function well. Much of the work in therapy is gaining insight and understanding about the links between our current problems and current issues, what's going on for us now as adults, usually in relationships, and where that comes from. What was our experience of love and care as children, and safety and trust, all of those things. What was our experience of that, and how does it frame and shape how we are as adults and how we are in relationship? And understanding is gained both through theory and understanding of what is attachment and what's the point of it, and also through experience. So feeling it, a felt sense, a connection, a relationship. Both of those things are alive in the therapy room. Tell me how you were loved, and I'll tell you how you make love. This is a quote from Esther Perel. Esther Perel is a psychotherapist who writes and works with relationships in general. What she often focuses on is sexual relationships and partners. I've deliberately picked this quote to set the scene a little bit. What she's talking about here is, tell me how you were loved as a child, and I'll tell you how you have sex, how you make romantic relationships, and what your romantic relationships say about you. But what I'm hoping to do with this quote is expand it a little bit and go, okay, it makes sense to me, because what we're saying is, if you look at how you were loved, how you were cared for, what happened to you as a child, then it's usually a really good indicator as to how and who you're going to form relationships with in later life. And so it's a really lovely quote to bring us all, as we're here tonight, thinking about into quite an adult context. But I'm not going to spend the evening talking about sex, you'll probably be glad to know. The early years is a route for attachment, but we want to keep a foot in our adult experience. In saying that, it's really important that we do know the understanding background. So most of the people here, I imagine, understand that as babies we have a range of different needs: biological, physiological, psychological, emotional needs. But with attachment, we focus specifically on our intrinsic need from birth for bonding and connection. Babies who cry, we pick them up, we cuddle them, we soothe them, we help them regulate their distress, and we acknowledge it in the first place in order to then do something with it. Infants that have their needs met when someone trustworthy consistently provides them with safety, security, and comfort. That's what we're talking about with infants and attachment. What I'm saying with therapy and adults and any adult relationships that's healthy and secure is that we're offering the same. We're offering someone trustworthy, consistently providing safety, security, and comfort. The intersubjectivity of these interactions is crucial. Intersubjectivity, I think, is a bit of a clunky word. Basically, we mean it's connected hearts and connected minds. There are people connecting together. What's going on for you and what's going on for me, and how are we relating to each other? How do we notice each other, and how do we make shared meaning? This early attachment is the beginning of us developing a sense of my emotions are valid, my needs are noticed and attended to. Someone gets me. So if I for some feedback from clients about what they're getting, what they're experiencing in therapy, one of the most common things people will say to me when they're talking about something positive is, you get it, you get me, and you want to get me. It's like as if you really want to, you want to understand it. That's what we're talking about. So it forms a safe base from which to explore the world for infants going off and playing, and for young children going off to school, but also counselling and therapy can form a safe base from which to within which to practice relating and what's going on for me and what's going on for you, and then take it out and to explore the world. When our emotional needs are not met or listened to, we learn that our emotions are not valid and our needs are unimportant. And what that begins to do is a negative internal self-concept, which basically can come out later in life as a sense of, I am unlovable, I am too much trouble, my needs are unimportant, or I'm bad, for example. So I have a client who often talks about, I don't want to say that, I don't want to bring that to friends, I don't want to talk about that because I'm too much trouble. And as we start to unpick and talk about her history, she kind of glibly, kind of off the cuff, said to me, "Oh, I was such a bad baby." And I asked her about that and said, where did she get that message from? Well, the message was that mum has told her all her life that she was a really bad baby because between the ages of birth and 6 months, she cried continuously. And mum didn't know what to do. And there was nothing that they could do to stop the crying. And they went to the medics to find out what was wrong with this baby and blah, 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 blah. Basically, nobody figured out what this baby needed, not what was wrong with it, not what was wrong with her, but what this baby needed. How could we help this baby? What's she asking for? And so as an adult, she now pushes her emotions away. She pushes her feelings away. She thinks she's too much trouble. And she believes that she doesn't need her needs met. But it's a disjoint because she feels like on some level she needs something, but she doesn't know what it is. As we get older, our needs remain the same or similar to what we had when we were wee, but they can be much harder ourselves to recognise if we've never had anyone recognise them with us. We don't know how to do that. And for others to recognise and respond to. So you maybe don't want somebody to respond well to you. This particular client doesn't cope well when her partner tries to offer a cuddle when she's feeling rubbish. Attachment experiences, both positive and negative, resonate throughout our lives and shape our relationships. Often the reasons adults seek therapy are rooted in their attachment history. Attachment history is a kind of blueprint for life. This is a quote from a client. It's not my fault that I couldn't relate or express my feelings. I have bits of my jigsaw missing. I haven't got all the pieces, and I'm having to go really far back to pick them up. This is a client who had been working with me for a good number of years. And so she was just starting to make sense of all the things that we had talked about and done and experienced in therapy up until this point. And she was going, God, I'm actually having to go all the way back to my early years to make sense of what it is that I feel like I'm missing now. Emotion is something to be defended against. This client was like any pain or difficulty or something, some kind of struggle or upset. It has no outlet. I can't let it out. That led to her self-harming, it led to her having a breakdown, and it led to suicide attempts. She went on to say in that same session, none of it's regulated. Now, this is a word of a client. That sounds very therapist-y, for want of a better word. But I didn't say it, she said it. Something around this, my emotions are all over the place and I don't know how to calm myself. And the only way I can calm myself is to harm myself. This client's mum was emotionally absent due to illness when she was younger. She was surrounded by family, but she was alone. So the different circumstances in which whatever clients are coming from in their history can create these really tricky things in adulthood of, here's my experience and my emotion, but I don't know what to do with them. Emotion becomes something to be avoided. When coping strategies don't work to block out the emotion, this client feels like she falls apart. She isn't able to regulate, calm, or seek support. So in therapy, I strive for a place for clients to experience attachment and connections that they might not have had access to before, and a safe place for them to test these out for themselves without fear of rejection. There's a concern for some people around the words mother or maternal or something around a therapist. It doesn't frighten me, and I'll explain why that is in a second, but the role of a therapist is akin to a mother who provides her child with a secure base from which to explore. The important bit for me in this is akin. I'm not and don't want to be my client's mother or parent, but the akin to means bringing qualities of and experiencing elements that create secure attachment, creating the secure base within the room, the physicality, and within the person, hopefully within me, that they're then able to learn and develop and explore themselves in a way that they haven't been able to previously. So together we can start to explore what happened to me in stark contrast to what's wrong with me, which is what often clients come with. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Frustrated and angry with themselves. We start to soften that a little bit. But, well, what happened? What's life been like? Clients usually arrive at therapy, or often arrive at therapy with a kind of, at least some kind of idea or a clear idea of what the current problem is for them, but they often don't have any understanding that it's got anything to do with their attachment history. They often dismiss emotions. And I'm generalizing wildly, but it's something that I see day in, day out, of people really struggling to feel or experience emotions, or dismissing them entirely. Emotions are communication. Behavior, the way we behave, is communicating something. Therapy explores what our body wants to pay attention to as well as what we're thinking. Therapy creates an environment where we can regulate the body system. The hope is to help that regulation to be able then to think and feel. So the following slides that I'm going to put up are kind of to highlight, and again to kind of think about what happens to you when I start to talk about the things that I'm about to say. See what goes on for you within your system and in your body when I bring up these topics, because they can be a little bit controversial or challenging within therapy. And I'll tell you why that's my experience of it in a second. 12 years. So I have a client at the moment who's been with me for over 12 years, nearly 13 now. I had a colleague who's also a therapist who kind of jokingly, I hope, said to me, what kind of a therapist are you? You must be really crap at your job if this client is staying for longer than 5 years. I don't know why 5 years was acceptable as opposed to 12, but anyway, there's something about the judgment that's made around the time at which it takes for some clients, for some adults, to repair from some of the harm that has happened to them, some of the wounds that they've experienced in childhood. Sometimes attachment-informed relational working can take years, and I, as a therapist, maybe differently to some other therapists, I choose to do that work. I choose when I work with a client that I'm in it for the long haul if they need me to be. Now, that's not freely kind of let's just do anything and, you know, the client gets stuck in and can't leave. We boundary it well, we review often, we look at what's happening. But for me, my experience is that for some people with some of the wounds that they've experienced in childhood, they need to replicate something of that developmental pattern that they've missed out on. So as a therapist, I'm not afraid of clients becoming attached. I'm not afraid of clients becoming dependent on me or the therapy. It offers a safe connection where they can grow and develop and then eventually leave and still come back for Sunday dinner. So I have a client who stayed with me for 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, we both knew he was done in therapy. He didn't need this anymore, but he was really struggling to leave. And we broke it down. We saw each other for weekly, for however long that we saw each other, for fortnightly. And then he came kind of once a month, and then he came once every 6 weeks. And eventually we got to a point where he said, I'm just worried I'll never see you again. I'm worried I'll not be able to come back here if I need to. Can I come back here if I need to? And I said, yeah, of course you can. Just come back for Sunday dinner. And it just came out. I don't even know where it came from. I'd never heard it before. Nobody had said it to me. It just came out. And then I started to explain to him, but also to myself, what I was meaning. And I think it came from this sense of, we've gone through this journey of him growing up. He's growing up and he's leaving home. And it's not the same, but there's a connection for me in that. And so here he is at 17, 18, 19. He's actually in his 40s, leaving home. And he wants to know that if he needs to, he can come back. And I say, of course you can come back. Caveats and everything. I might not be here tomorrow. I might not be able to work. But if we can make it happen, you can come back. And that was enough for him. That client left and he was away for 2 years. I never heard from him. I got a text about 6 months ago from him and it just said, hi, Catherine, can I come back for Sunday dinner? And I said, of course. And he came back for an hour. And halfway through that hour, he said to me, Catherine, I have to confess, like, there's nothing really wrong. I just wanted to come back. I just wanted to come back, my words, to his secure base, to then leave again and be okay. So I hope that gives a kind of essence of what I'm talking about in terms of the length of time and the relationship that can be developed. Inner child, oh goodness me, that's a big one. So lots of people don't like the words inner child, or even thinking about it, or what? No, I'm an adult. I'm not childish. I'm not going there. I've done my childhood. I'm now an adult. A lot of my work in therapy is about working with the inner child. Who is in there from our history, and what are they trying to tell us? And I often find myself with clients referring to their inner child when I'm experiencing that with them, when they're talking to me. I can see, it's almost like I can see a smaller being next to them pulling at their trouser leg. I'm here, notice me. I need you to notice something. And so I'll often say that to clients and see if that kind of resonates in some way. And as much as they struggle and cringe with it, it usually does in some way resonate, because we bring all parts of ourselves from the years that we've had before. So there's judgments that are made about working with inner child, about me, about that kind of hippie typical therapist that's going back to, mother problems and all of that. There's judgments that clients make about themselves, which to me are the important bits, is that it's silly, it's ridiculous, it's childish, it's pathetic. These are all things that clients will say to me. But actually, a lot of the key work that I do, particularly with people repairing attachment wounds, is to reconnect them to their child in a really safe way. And for me to see their child is sometimes really important. For me to invite their child into the room and be able to work with them is sometimes really important in order to help them reconnect to that part of themselves. Clients who particularly struggle are often ones who've had really severe particular trauma. I know of particularly clients who have experienced sexual abuse, for example, really struggle to even entertain the idea of their inner child, because it's so painful, it's so scary to go to, that they want to remain an adult, and their behaviours as adults will demonstrate that. They will do adult things. They will remain an adult all the time. They don't want to play. Some clients I work with really struggle to play with their own children. They don't want all that. They want to be adult and whatever that means, straightforward and concentrated and sensible. And so some of the work with them is about helping them reconnect with their child, but in as gentle a way possible, which also can take time. So just because you try and ignore it doesn't mean it won't pull on your leg. And then love is the last thing that I want to kind of highlight as being a kind of controversial thing that comes up in therapy. And it shouldn't be controversial. It should be said, and it should be said loudly. Love is not a scary word in counselling. It is not a scary word for Scottish attachment action. It is important that we talk about it. Judgments that have been made about me about talking about love is that I'm over involved with my clients, or that I'm too in there with them, or again, that kind of hippy dippy counsellor thing. Judgments clients make is often they don't really know whether they don't really believe it. They don't really know am I talking rubbish when I say I like them, or I care for them, or that there's love in this relationship. Are they worthy of that? So there's something about the fact that many of these clients that I'm working with, many adults, have only ever experienced conditional, insecure, inconsistent love. And I feel privileged to offer them the alternative. So I'm not going to be frightened to delight in that. And a lot of what I do with my clients is getting to the point where we have the hard bits, the really tricky bits, but we also have the banter and the fun and all the stuff that goes alongside it. It's really important we play alongside this hard work that we're doing too. Okay, where am I time-wise? I have no idea. Edwina, are we doing okay for time, or have I gone on for like 3 hours?
No, you haven't, Catherine. It's
feels like it.
25 to, so 35 minutes, 25 to 7, Catherine. So you have loads of time to talk through your examples.
Thank you.
So, and I can see people are absolutely transfixed. So carry on.
Okay. Yeah, part of this funny thing about Zoom is I can't actually see anybody at the moment. So if you're all yawning or asleep, then you're fine because I can't see you. Okay, so I've got a couple of client examples to bring to you just to give a kind of sense and a flavour of a kind of more expanded version of attachment and action in the therapy room. I want to start by saying that the slide I'm about to show you, so I put a false name up for this client, and and I sent him, it's the client that I'm working with at the moment, and I sent him the slides that I was going to put by email, and I said to him, can you check these over and make sure you're good with everything and you're okay and whatever we talked about in the session. So I sent it to him, and the email that came back was, just shows you a little bit of our relationship. The email that came back was, Catherine, I'm delighted that you're using this stuff from my experience, and thank you so much for including me, and it's all fine, but why on earth have you called me David? Sorry if there's anyone in here called David, but he thought that was boring. He said, please, for the love of God, can you call me Fabio? So he's Fabio. So I emailed him back, so he wasn't actually meaning for me to do it. So I emailed him back and said, that's it, changed. You're Fabio, and I will tell them why. So, so on a more serious note, Fabio's life is quite harrowing. He arrived in therapy unhappy in his marriage. He arrived feeling really threatened and unhappy at work in his relationships with people, colleagues and work. And his coping mechanisms included drinking and drug use. The interesting thing I found about Fabio was he would use drinking and drug use sometimes to push down his feelings because they were scary, and he had never had anyone help him explore his feelings before, so he needed to get rid of them because he didn't know what to do with them. But what he was starting to do before he started coming to therapy was he would start using them and saying, I'm using them to try and elicit something. I'm trying to get a feeling. And so this was kind of the beginning of his journey. He knew he wanted to do something with feelings that he was struggling with. And so he was trying to elicit something. So part of the therapy that we've done together has been to help him access some of those feelings. One of the things that's really important about Fabio's history is that he did have a really secure attachment with mum when he was a young child. So early years, he describes that as the best from what he remembers and what he knows of that. So he has had an example of a secure attachment. What happened was mum then got ill when he was in his primary school years, and she became very, very depressed and began drinking. And he became a highly alert and highly terrified child because every time he went home from school, he feared that his mum would be dead. He feared what he was going home to. The really unfortunate thing for Fabio was that fear came true, and his mum committed suicide when he was 11. The experiences and things the events that happened around his mum's death I'm not going to expand on too much, but it's needless to say he wasn't supported at all by the adults around him. So the other attachment figures in his life severely let him down, and he and even just other adults who weren't attachment figures. So he was in the waiting room after his mum had died. He was in the waiting room in the hospital waiting to hear what had happened to mum. And a nurse came through and told an 11-year-old boy that his mum had died when he had no other adults in the room with him. And then she left him to deal with that in the waiting room. So then he took himself home. And when he got home, and he was reunited with his dad, and his dad obviously knew what happened, he cried, and his dad shouted at him and said, big boys don't cry. So don't have any feelings. And if you do have feelings, don't show them. And it's not okay to be you, is the message he got. I care about these clients. So as I talk about them, I can feel myself, I'm going to hold it together, but I can feel it because I care about him.
Catherine, I can feel it too, and I think other people are feeling that too. So, yeah.
Thanks, Adrina. So, Fabio's life before his mum died was very transitional. They were never in one place. The family circumstance meant that they were all over the place. I don't think there's a year that he's described to me in his childhood where he didn't move schools at least twice. So he never had any stable relationships anywhere. He became suspicious of everyone. There was always fightings in the school that he went to because he was the strange boy that was coming in and then leaving. And he would talk about these kids trying to get a rise out of me. They were trying to get to me. He then, as an adult, was telling me, these people in work are trying to get a rise out of me. So you can see the threat is absolutely still there, and his vigilance to that threat still there in adulthood, still in fight or flight mode, still always highly on guard. He was went to a Celtic school at one point, and his dad sent him to school with a Rangers rucksack on. Anybody that knows Glasgow, that's not a great thing for a boy, for anyone. So he had a really, really disrupted, not good experience in childhood, and no relationships that were safe for him to go to. He reads the room. So one of the things as an adult that Fabio does is he walks into a room and he will suss out every single person in that room as soon as he walks in. He can tell me that that person's doing that and that person's thinking that, and I need to be careful of that one, but that one's okay. And what's really interesting about that is it's a coping strategy. It's a way of keeping himself safe. But as an adult, it's really unhelpful to him because it's often not right. He's sometimes accurate because he's been doing it for such a long time, but it's sometimes not right. And it can also lead him on the other side to being a little bit vulnerable, because what he's done with me when he read the room with me when he first met me was, you're great, you're fine, 100%, you're trustworthy. And so we spent time in the therapy room talking about that. Well, how does he know? Where's he getting that sense from? So giving him a sense of agency and making sense of what he's doing, why he's doing it, and how it's helping him or not. Fabio in the counselling room has changed. Yeah, I mean, he's changed massively in the time that I've worked with him, and still is shifting as we go through the weeks. He's beginning to recognise his own needs, which is massive. He's able to go, this isn't okay for me, and I want it to be different. Building trust in me has helped him build trust in himself. He's starting to change that narrative very slowly, change that narrative. It's actually okay to be me. You know, really trying to move from that sense that he had from his dad of it's not okay to be you and big boys don't cry. Crying in the therapy room has been really important for him, to have a place where he can cry and not be ridiculed, not be judged. It's not shaming. He can be himself, and he can finally connect and can finally grieve years and years later. This has been healing for him. A big part of the work that we've done together is working with his inner child. This is a perfect example of a client who was like, fuck off, I am not going near my child. That's not happening. And yeah, over time, a bit of perseverance from me, he is now, I don't have time to tell you all the different things that have gone on with that, but now from that, he's now, he'll come to me between sessions. He'll say, oh, between sessions, I'm really thinking about like how to, you know, when I'm feeling frustrated or I'm feeling something, I just take myself out for a walk. I just go and I take my music and I listen to music, and the music helps me regulate and calm, and I'm feeling okay. And then he said to me, in between the sessions, he said, I was out a walk and I just had a good look around, made sure nobody was there. And then I started being an airplane, and an airplane all the way down the hill. And he was just delighting in this. And it was like his child self had come alive in the room. And it was so beautiful. And when I said that to him, I said, it's like there's a part of you that's come alive in here. Is it your child self that's coming alive in here? And he said, yeah, and I love him. And it was beautiful to see. And that is him connecting that thread right from childhood and all the difficulties and struggles that he had, right through into a place where he actually likes his inner child. Not even just he's putting up with, he likes his inner child, and he's responding to what that inner child is pulling on his leg about. He's recognizing the feelings, he's recognizing the emotions that go on for him. So he's more able to support himself. And again, with Fabio, I have no fears about him being dependent or reliant on this process, because at some point, the work that we're doing together is helping him learn self-care, self-regulation. He's able to ask for what he needs when he needs it. So he's getting all of that. At some point, he'll not need this anymore. I have no doubt. At some point, he will have done enough, and he'll move on. And it's just delightful to work with him. Okay, so Mark, we okay to do another one, Edwina?
Sorry, Catherine, I was muted. Yes, absolutely. Please.
Okay, so Mark arrived, I'm smiling because I know what I'm about to say. Mark arrived in therapy 12 and a bit years ago. So he is at the moment my longest standing client. And when he arrived, the first session, I said, I'm checking out, what do you need? What are you coming for? And he said, I kind of need some help figuring out why my partner's annoyed with me. We talked a little bit more. And then he said, well, I do take his car keys and I hide them so that he can't go out. And at that point, I thought, okay, maybe something to do with attachment in here somewhere. I just held that lightly and we carried on. And from there, this relationship between myself and Mark developed, where he was able to explore all of that and make sense of why he was doing that. A massive reason that he was doing that, the reason he was doing that was about a fear of abandonment. He's absolutely terrified of being abandoned by anyone. And that's played out in the therapy room too. So for me, he's absolutely terrified that I'll abandon him, or I'll suddenly hate him, or I'll stop working with him, or I'll choose to leave. That comes directly from Mum having left when he was 2. So Mum and Dad were together, and then Mum decided she wanted to be with somebody else, and she left just one day randomly. She didn't explain, she didn't say anything, she just left. He just realised that she wasn't there anymore. He does now have a relationship with her, but at the time, if you can imagine, a toddler's like, what's going on? Where's Mummy? From that moment until, I don't know when he was able to recognise entirely what it was that Dad was saying, but Dad said, when he asked throughout his childhood, when he asked Dad, why did Mum leave? Dad said, Mum left because she didn't like us. Mum left because of us. And my sense of Mark and a lot of clients is that children make meaning of what's going on for them. So nobody explained to him what was going on other than this horrific explanation from Dad. But see, even if Dad hadn't said that, my sense is that he would still have that sense of it's my fault, or I did something wrong. Mum, I had to do something because Mum wouldn't just choose to leave. And so that sense of it's my fault, I'm bad, I've done something wrong, I must be unlovable. They're the themes that have come up throughout Mark's work in his adult life in therapy. He's distrustful of everybody. He's terrified of people leaving. So he struggles with change. One of the biggest things again, I'm smiling because we've come so far with it, but one of the biggest things with this client is how much he has tested me over the years, how much he will push me and push me and push me to see if I'll stay, or to see if I'll get fed up and leave him. And one of the things that I notice with Mark is because he struggles with change, he worries about any kind of change is going to be lost. So he'll come in and he will have every single bit of my room, every single bit of me clocked and organized in his head. So if I move anything, if he comes into the therapy room and I've moved a plant, he will be the first to tell me, and he'll worry. He'll check out what's going on there. So his anxiety will rise. We can spend sessions on that. So again, looking at the length of time he's been in therapy, if you think about just that, it's not actually that long a time, because we've spent sessions and sessions on his fear of loss and abandonment because I've changed something in the room. Something's different. Helping him calm, helping him regulate in that situation, and relying on my relationship with him and my consistency has been one of the most important things with this client. He often talked about wanting to be my number one client. So this client is testing and pushing and continually doing things. I mean, anybody that knows a therapist, he picked up a box of tissues at one point, just chucked it across the floor just to see what would happen, just to see what I would do, hoping that it would annoy me enough that I would throw him out, but also desperately hoping it didn't. So he tests me, but he also, on the flip side, wants to impress me and wants to be my best client and say all the right things. So I might ask him a question and he would respond, and then he might say something to me like, is that the answer you wanted? Is that what you were looking for? Is that what you need from me? What is it you need from me so that I'll like him? If he does the right thing, then I'll like him. So unconditionality is really important with this client. Do I care about him unconditionally? Absolutely. Do I like him as a person? Absolutely. Do I love him as a person? Absolutely. Do I like all his behavior? No. But that's okay. And it's developing that kind of trust and that back and forth in relationship with him, and coping with managing with change. And my consistency and my dependability has been really, really crucial. He, as a result, has become less controlling. He's building trust in himself and others, and his relationship. He's not with the person he was with his car key thing. Surprise, surprise. He's now in a relationship where he has had a long-term relationship now for a good number of years. He's had some really hairy moments in that of what are they doing, what's they leave, but he doesn't steal car keys, he doesn't control, he can have time away from, he can have time together, he can trust that they mean what they say when they say they want to be with him. And so he's really shifted over time. And I believe that that's to do with, Mark, you don't have to impress me. You don't have to change me for me to like you and value you. For him to get that message continually over a long period of time through therapy, through all the different ways in which we work with that, has been really helpful for him. So attachment is healing and growth. So I'm hoping that you're getting a sense and a flavour. I mean, these clients are, a tiny proportion of the clients that I could bring tonight. We could talk for hours. And I hope I'm giving you a sense of and a flavour of how, when you have attachment relationships that are secure and safe in adulthood, you can heal and grow from some of the things that have happened previously. Relational traumas require relational responses. We often hear with therapy and counselling that the research will say to you that the important bit of therapy is the relationship. That's the bit. You can do any modality, you can pick and choose any different kind of techniques or ways of working, but actually the relationship is the best indicator of whether therapy is going to be useful or not. So for me in therapy, the relationship is the work, that's it, and the rest comes from there. So therapy has to be dependable, consistent, safe, connected, and secure, all things that attachment are. Attachment doesn't mean perfection. Relationships are messy. It's okay for me to be frustrated with Mark. It's okay for me to feel like that with him. And over our time together, certainly not in the beginning, but over our time together, it's now okay for me to express that to him and see what happens and notice how he is with that. Really work with that idea. I don't do that very often, but when it comes up, I will now. And he can handle it and manage it. Insecure attachment doesn't only occur in obviously traumatic childhood. So this is something that I think is attachment is often linked with trauma. And of course it is. But some of the things, when I spoke about, I can't remember, did I speak about the client who had a really good attachment with her family? I think I did. There's a really good attachment with her family, and yet they put a silver lining on everything. Everything was silver lined. They were attuned, they were there, they were connected, they were loving, they were responsive. She describes all of these things about her parents. And yet they would put a silver lining on everything. And as soon as they put a silver lining on everything, it means that some of her emotions and feelings and anything difficult gets pushed down. And so as an adult, anything tricky that comes up for her, she doesn't know how to deal with. She hasn't learned how to respond to and connect to difficult feelings. So attachment difficulties can occur through absence, even in contexts that are largely kind of secure and positive. Where there's rupture, repair offers the opportunity to heal. So any relationship where someone is willing to reflect and go, I'm sorry, or I shouldn't have done that. And I find myself often doing that in the therapy room. I'm human. There will be things I say that are stupid or thoughtless or not okay. And I'll reflect on them. And I'll usually, when I know about them, I'll usually offer some repair to that. These offer opportunities to heal too. Therapy often grows trust in self and others. We've talked about that so far with the clients that I've mentioned. It's like that sense of who am I in the world, and like, can I trust myself? Can I make sense of my own world? And is it okay? Am I allowed to be me? That opens up the option for more social and relational opportunities. And our neural networks are not concrete. Nothing is set in stone with any of this. It can be very ingrained. Messages that we have from childhood can be very overwhelming and stuck, but it doesn't mean they can't change. New relationships, new experiences, secure attachment in adulthood can repair some of the damage and some of the wound from insecure attachment in childhood. So there's always hope. And I'm going to finish with Esther Perel, where I started. So the quality of your life depends on the quality of your relationships. And again, I guess it's just a kind of thought-provoking point. For me, it does. For me, the quality of my connections, the people I love and the people that connect with me and attune to me and make sense of me and get me, and vice versa. Yeah, my life is better for that. And before I finish, I want to really hugely express my thanks to my clients for allowing me to be part of their journey and for allowing me to share some of that, for the ones that allowed me to do that tonight. But each client I work with touches me, so these relationships are reciprocal. This is not a one-way street, and this is not just a job. And yeah, I want to thank all my clients for allowing me to be part of their lives in this way. I also want to thank Edwina for being here and being my wing woman tonight. And yeah, let's see if there's any discussion or chat from tonight. Thanks very much for listening.